Okay. Are we good, Stephen? You're on mute.
Yep.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the ASPPPO February board meeting. We convened at 9 o'clock, went into executive session, established a quorum and went into executive session, and we're now back out. Greg? The minutes?
We need to ratify minutes from several meetings, the board of directors meetings, so special meeting or organizational meeting minutes from November 12th and December 30th of last year, and our organizational meeting minutes from January 14th.
So
All
moved.
those in, okay.
Thank you.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Welcome again to our meeting. The remarks will be very brief. I just would like to toast all of you on the recent passing of the referendum. And thank you to our board members and property owners for investing the time and energy to bring about this really positive outcome. I do have to say, though, it sure took a long time. It's been over a decade to get to this wonderful position. And that's after at least 2 failed referendums and 1 that was withdrawn. Of course, when you're working with covenants that require a supermajority to pass, it puts a minority of homeowners, 25% plus 1 to be precise, in the position of making critical decisions for our community. The decade that it took to pass the referendum did not serve our property owners well. The 75% bar is too high. And now is the time, I believe, to look at our covenants with an eye toward our future. Charles Fraser was a true visionary. He was the first to put together the master plan community concept. And since Sea Pines was first conceived, there have been many, many more and many more successful communities. Each newer community has had the benefit of being able to improve on the original Fraser vision and covenants. And you don't see a lot of 75% thresholds out there. You'll note on our agenda today that there is a task force for covenant reform. This should be a priority for ASPPPO. Our property owners need reasonable reforms. And I am inviting you to work with us to help bring this about. It's not going to happen overnight, and it might even take a year, but it cannot take 10 years. We must begin with acknowledging that the 75% threshold is simply too high in this day and age. In the meantime, let's savor this moment. Thank you. Before we get started, I wanted to officially recognize J.R. Richardson and Rich Spear, our board members who have rotated out this year, and the contributions that they have made for us. Both J.R. and Rich share an enormous amount of history and expertise that we were able to benefit from. And the number of hours that they have volunteered for ASPPPO, I don't think is possible to calculate. So we want to say thank you and thank you again. As we say farewell to Rich and JR, we also welcome to our board Lee Stevens. Lee, where are you? Welcome. And Greg Thompson, raise your hand, welcome. And Bill Johnson, who's going to be serving his 2nd term. Thank you. We conducted a brief organizational meeting in January, during which I was elected president, Dave Ellis was elected vice president, and Greg Thompson, the new secretary, and Grover Todd is our new treasurer. So with that, Grover, I think you are up on the agenda with the financial update.
All right. During this meeting, we'll go over the year-end financials for 2020. So if you'll first look at the balance sheet, and it'll have 2 columns, one for December 31st of 20 and the other for December 31st of 19. And I'll just run down that and you can see the comparisons, but under our assets, we've got an operating cash about $10,000, money market 1,100, and Morgan Stanley fund 3,200, so a total of 14,000, which is far less than last year. But you can see we had $79,000 last year in a Morgan Stanley fund that had not been invested, or this year it is. And that's reflected if you go down just below that under investments. We're at 380,000 versus 298 of last year. So that's where that number is reflected. And you see our accrued interest and any unrealized gain that's brought in over time. So total of 396 in our investments compared to 304 last year. Prepaid insurance, that's your D&O insurance. Total assets at 421,000 versus 398 last year. Under liabilities, you can see accounts payable to CSA. That is basically going to be a journal entry that Victoria will make here in the coming days of monies that ASPO still owes CSA, just hadn't been moved over. So our current liability is around 90,000, undesignated fund balance at 330, and total liabilities and fund balance at 421 this year. So pretty close to last year, but then about $23,000. You can see under our new members at the bottom, or number of members, you can see the trend going from 2013 through 20. We saw a slight uptick, which is positive news, 120 something more than last year. But our goal, I think we've got a pool of 5,800 to choose from. So we need all of them to be a member of ASPO. It's a voluntary organization, but it represents the residential property owners. So everyone needs to be a member, and that's our goal. Any questions on the balance sheet for 2020? All right, if you'll flip over then, let's look at, on the income statement, let's look at the current year actual versus prior year actual. I think that's a good way to look at things. And then you have a variance. Looking at revenues, membership dues, and I just said that the membership was slightly higher in 20 than 19, so that's reflected in the dues. License plates, that's where, as a Seapine resident, someone can buy a license plate that has Seapines on it for your automobile, and you can get that through CSA, and ASPO benefits from the income. Interest, that's from our investments. So we're at 139 versus 137 last year total. Expenses, ASPO participates with a land use monitor, which is our employee who goes out and verifies that folks are using their land and their lot and their home in the way that the exterior of their home, the way that our covenants see fit. And that we had a $20,000 expense in 19 versus 36 in 20. That's because in 19 there was a period of time we didn't have a land use monitor. This year reflects the whole year. We pay 40% of that expense, where CSA pays 40. So then we have accounting and compilation. That's the CPA that does our tax return. Technology service, that's the landline we have for the CSA office for just ASPO. 21,000 for insurance. That's our D&O insurance for the board. Legal and professional fees. That's primarily right at 11,000 of it was a suit that we have against one property in Seapines, and that's the cost of that. So that's the biggest part of it. There was some more cost involving corporate structure, correspondence, with a couple of board members for ASPO, and there was some expense there. But that was pretty much what our legal and professional fees were during 20. Going down in rent, ASPO, as you know, does not have an office of our own. We are charged a % of space in the CSA office, and that's what that 4380 is. CSA service fee, that is, we do not have administrative employees hired by ASPO. So we use employees that are employed by CSA, and then we're charged for their time and what they do for meetings, preparing our financials, paying our bills, etc. And that's what that $19,000 is. Bank service charges, that's our lockbox fees and collecting our dues, basically. They'll print and send and collect all the dues, and that's their charge, bank charges. Consultant surveys, communication services, all of that is part of building our web page, which we're all very much in support of. That's going to be a big benefit to us, but that's some fees that are associated with that. Annual meetings, much less this year at 3,700 versus 13,000 last year, but this year it was virtual. It also is an expense for mail-in proxies, that type of thing. Website development is more cost in getting that up. And so that level would not be a recurring number. That's more in the development, and it would just have maintenance going forward. Let's see, travel was next to nothing. That's just, again, our land use manager for a little bit of travel that he does, but it's very little, if any. Election, that's 13,000. That's to mail ballots out, count ballots, print, even the bylaws, that kind of thing. That's all goes out with the election this past year. So total expenses is 157 versus 144 of last year. And I think the biggest swing that you see there would be the land use monitor and some money spent on the website development. Any questions on expenses? Dana?
Not a question, just a comment. The land use monitor uses his own car. So he drives around when he does inspections for ARB and for CSA, he gets reimbursed for that mileage, just to clarify that point. It's not travel per se.
Bill?
I'm still scratch my head every time I see this number in our bank service charges. For us to be paying $9,000 to collect $127,000 is out of line. And I know Paul has been working on that, but can you give us any update as to where that stands?
Paul, did you do that?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, this was charges for 2020, and the billing was done before most of us came into office, because this is 2019. It was billing for 2020, whatever. I was not part of the conversation with the bank when we put this together. It will not be this high in 2021. We've done a couple of things. One, we took, for some unknown reason, the postage was first class. We took that down to pre-sort first class, which is almost took the cost in half. We have uploaded credit card transactions to the website. It is our hope that we can get most of the membership on credit card. Change comes hard, change comes slowly. So that I would give that 3 to 4 years. I wish it would be 3 to 4 months, but not only that, we are giving the transaction we are absorbing the transaction fee that other people normally charge for credit cards, because when you look at it, it's so much cheaper than the bank fees that, you know, we're still coming out ahead, but it's an incentive for people to switch over. The system was used by CSA for CSA, and they plugged ASPPPO into it. It works for CSA. They're collecting over $1,000. It doesn't work for us.
Thank you, Paula. And I know there's been a lot of work done on that, so we will see improvement in the future. So with those numbers, we had about $18,000 in excess of our revenues in expenses. Did have some other income, of course, our bond premium, which I'll cover those in a minute. You have to solely expense the premiums over time, and that's where Victoria's showing it. But we have some unrealized gain on our investments of $8,900. That's basically the market has gone up on what we have invested. So other income was $4,100, so that gives us a loss of $14,051 for the year. One thing that will assist us next year is that we have an increase in the dues to $50 versus I think it was $35 previous year. So that gives us a little shot in the arm. In addition, we're after new members because this organization does again support all of the residential property owners and for the best interest of them. So we want everybody to voluntarily be a member. That's a lot of bang for $50 a year.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. You wanted to do this ladder?
Yeah, I just started.
Okay.
I got about 3 hours left.
Okay, good.
I'm trying to be a mini Rich here.
Well,
So,
you're doing very well.
thank you. The last thing I would cover is our schedule of our investments. And if you can turn to that page. And I'll just say in short that the way this is devised is over a 6-year period. We've divided up our reserves and we've got it invested in this ladder form. And the reason you do that, naturally, though, if you can lock an investment in, for example, for 5 years, you're going to make more return than if you lock it in for 1 year or 1 month. And so this gives us the maximum to where we've always got, $20,000 to $50,000 that we can reinvest for 5 years. But then again, we can always have 20 to 50,000 that is liquid that we can use. And so you can see the yields there that we benefit. Now that last one, ultra short, that's our very liquid cash, and you can see what kind of return you get at that. That's, not even 1% compared to the others that we've committed it for some time. So that completes my report unless there's questions.
Thank you very much. ASPPPO updates. Lee Stevens is an active member of the ARB as well as ASPPPO, so we're fortunate to have him to give us an update.
Thanks, Paula. The report that's in the packet is a monthly report that the ARB administrators generate. Just for everybody's edification, the top part just indicates how we get to the 5,890 residences that are in Sea Pines. So it's broken up by homes, lots remaining, and multifamily dwellings, and the 64 dwelling units that the resort has assigned to them. On the other page, just gives you an indication of the work that ARB did for the year 2020. with new single-family residences, that's what SFR stands for, of 41, major renovations of 72, small renovations of 670, 40 pools were approved over the year, 17 commercial permits, new lots improved, and then demos of houses that were being torn down for new houses. So it's pretty straightforward. We get one of these every month. And the only other thing that I would mention relative to ARB that some of you may have been seeing on social media is and Bill, I'm going to mention the colors that were painted on the townhomes in Harbor Town. And there's been a lot of communication on social media on that. And I think what most people don't understand is, first of all, some people are making comments that I guess now anybody can put those colors on their houses in sea pines, and that's not correct. Harbor Town is a special district. It was originally viewed in Charles Fraser's vision to be a Portofino type of harbor port. And those were the types of colors that he envisioned. So those things are approved and obviously would have to come in for approval for any buildings in Harbor Town, but they're not colors that are going to be approved for single family homes throughout Sea Pines, in case anybody had a comment or question about that. So that's my report, unless there's any questions.
Yeah. Lee, I had a question on the Class B, apologies, on the Class B multifamily dwelling units. Is that the combination of timeshare and villas?
I think it's, I believe it's timeshare. I don't believe it's villas.
So would villas be a single family dwelling unit as well?
That's a good question, Paul. I'll have to check on that for you. I
Okay.
think multifamily dwellings, Class B would be something that's a commercial property, such as a timeshare. I don't believe it's a villa, but I'll check on that and get an answer for you.
Okay, thank you. Because what I was driving to was, what is our universe of potential ASPPPO members? You know, what's the number there?
Mhm.
So
Understand.
anyway, yeah, thank you very much.
Sure.
All righty, communications. Greg Thompson, our secretary. Welcome, new secretary. You're on mute.
There we go. You hear me now?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Good, thank you. Just a brief report. With our annual billing going out, we've seen an increase in people signing up and giving us their emails, which is nice to have. We now have a little over 1,900 of our 3,600 plus members emails. We'd like to get them all, obviously. We've got a newsletter coming out in a week or so, and I think it's fair to say we will be doing a number of surveys this year to check the pulse of members on a variety of topics. So I think we'll be pretty active in that. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Website updates. I mentioned earlier that we had added the credit card transaction capability. And I also said that change comes slow. We have a whopping 294 credit card transactions so far. To say I'm disappointed would be an understatement. So we will go back out on social media. We will send a reminder out in the February newsletter. It's a generational change, I think, as we have new people come in, and we're certainly open to suggestions. We will also add a capability to the website, which is, I believe it's a free plugin, and the integration would be covered by our monthly hosting fee. And that is the ability to create petitions for our members. And that's it for website. Any thoughts, questions? Barry?
Yeah, just a suggestion, Paula, in terms of the electronic collection of fees, it might be helpful for people to understand that they can really help us save costs. You know, first of all, it's convenience for them and for us, but it also would help us save costs, you know, in terms of our lockbox costs, because as long as we don't have people signing up electronically, the fees are still going into the lockbox. So, you know, maybe just asking or mentioning at some point, please do this. It'll be convenient for you. And oh, by the way, it helps us reduce
It
our
helps our budget too. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank
Uh-huh.
you. Grover, were you going to say something?
No,
No.
scratching my head.
All right. Okay. Uh-oh, you own it. Lee, you're on mute.
Yeah, just going back to Grover's report, were we going to vote to accept that or?
Oh, gosh. Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
Where's the resolution? Grover, you want to put your financial reports up for approval,
I will. I'll
for
put the
acceptance?
year-end 2020 financial reports. Make a motion that they be accepted.
All those in favor? Oh, second, yes. All those in favor? We're good. Thank you, Lee. The next update is land use management. And before I turn it over to Dana, I just wanted to say in the board packet is a summary of the 2020 accomplishments of the Land Use Management Committee. One of the things, over and above the work that they have done and the contributions that they have made, there is a chart of the number of hours that have been done on behalf of the refresh of the rules and regulations. And this committee has spent over 4,000 hours working on this project. The entire committee, I think, deserves a huge recognition and a thank you from us for the work. I don't know where it would have come from if they didn't do it. There was a void from CSA in getting land use management out and up and running. It wasn't getting enough attention. And so this has been a tremendous benefit for all property owners. So with the management committee update, Dana?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I want to acknowledge Rich Spear as my co-chair, my CSA board co-chair last year, for all of the support that he offered our committee. And I also want to, of course, acknowledge all the members of this committee. I think given the work that they've put in, it's worth mentioning their names, and that's Alex Cruden, Chuck Kotler, Susan Johnson, who's been appointed by the ARB, Martha Mustard, Kathy Rash, Lee Stevens, and Jonathan Surrey. Also, I'd like to mention that we have a new member, a new person who just volunteered, Karen Gay, who will be joining us for her first meeting in a week. So we also have room if there anyone else would like to join this committee and volunteer. We would be happy to welcome you. This is a great group of people, as you can see their commitment. So if I could direct your attention to page 31 of the board packet, where is a summary of the work that was accomplished last year. And in another page of our board package, it talks about the land use violations, which you can see are highlighted in bold on page 31, third paragraph. And this is the work that Ryan Cash has done, and he's our land use monitor. He works not only to monitor properties in our community and make sure that they conform to the covenant requirements of outward maintenance and upkeep, but he also is some of the eyes for the ARB. So I felt not only the numbers were important, but it's important to point out how much more work was done in 2020 versus prior years. So out of a total of 538 violations, land use violations that he addressed, that's a 66% increase over what was accomplished last year. Part of that was because we didn't have a land use monitor for the entire year. but also it is a renewed effort by CSA and ASPO to ensure that this function is supported. And of those, almost 400 as of December 9th had been fully resolved. There were 141 still active and ongoing. So it's and that's a lot to be celebrated. That kind of success is a lot to be celebrated. But what I pointed out and what Rich and I pointed out in this summary is that there is still a significant number of properties that remain in violation, not being maintained or properly kept up for months or even years. So it's important for this board, as well as the CSA board and the community, to realize that we are aware of that and that we're doing what we can to address that. And one of the things that we are pushing for and work very hard on is to develop a refresh of the land use rules and regulations for residential property owners, long-term and short-term renters, which I'll point to in our meeting packet. As Paula pointed out, thousands of hours have, over more than 2 years, have gone into working on these rules. And just so I think that's really the main point of this, is to encourage the community to not only to be aware of this and to also take a look at the packet of the rules document that starts on page 19 of your meeting packet. Paula, is it all right if I say a few words about that?
I think they speak for themselves. I think we could probably put them up for approval.
Well, I wanted to just say a couple of things, if you don't mind, about the spirit of the rules, so that the community understands that the goal and the purpose in part A on page 19 of the packet points out that we all buy into sea pines because we love the way it looks, we love the environment, we love the feel of it, and no one wants to buy into sea pines and not have the property value maintained. And so, and also by maintaining your properties to a standard that everyone can agree to as being reasonable, logical, that makes not only for better financial position in your own property value, but it also makes for a better community environment and respect for neighbors with each other. So that's really the goal. We looked at 8 other plantations and on the island communities, gated communities, and we looked at their rules and guidelines. These were subject to legal review by CSA's legal counsel to make sure that they were legal, fair, clear, and not too egregious. And we feel confident that these rules represent the spirit of Sea Pines, and we look forward to being able to utilize them in our community.
Thank you very much. Why don't we skip ahead then? And would you like to put the rules up for the resolution to approve them?
Yes. So the resolution for 9A is resolved. Association of Sea Pines Plantation Property Owners, Inc. and the Advisory Board approves the land use management rules regulations December 23rd as revised and presented.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Oh, second? Greg, second. All those in favor? Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Am I missing? I'm missing Dave, Barry, Bill, and okay.
I'm abstaining.
So we have 6.
Show me as abstaining.
Okay. We have Dave Ellis is abstained.
Barry also is abstaining, and I'm sure there'll be some discussion. on why I'm abstaining.
Bill Johnson also is abstaining.
Okay, so we have 6 in favor, 3 abstains. With the passage of this, the refresh rules recommendation will go over to CSA. There is a committee, a task force that is forming at CSA to review it with an eye toward enforcement and how it can be enforced. So this is our jumping off point. There will be some edits to it, I'm sure, in the next month or two as CSA addresses it. And then we'll go on from there. Thank you very much, Dana.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Barry, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in the spirit of my recusal at this point, is because I also want to go through, and knowing that it's obviously subject to revision when it gets passed over to CSA, there will obviously be additional discussion about it. I want to go on record as obviously supporting all of the work and the finite nature of what's been accomplished here. And I think that it's just important. I mean, personally, the one thing I want to hear more about, especially on the CSA side, is the enforcement and how the enforcement will be handled, because they ultimately need to implement these rules and regs. So again, I commend the committee for all of their work. And it is, I mean, there has not been a committee, probably on either boards that will have spent as much time, on this kind of work. So I appreciate that. Just wanted to explain my position.
I understand your position, and I would respond with, our eyes are wide open. We understand that all enforcement is up to CSA, and this is as far as ASPPPO can take it. It is our recommendation. It is a very strong proposal, and we fully accept that there will be edits. Bill, you had a...
Well, I was going to echo what Barry said in that my abstention in no way reflects negatively on the yeoman's job that Dana has done, nor the committee. I just want to make certain that we, before I vote on it for ASPPPO, I want to be consistent with my voting for ASPPPO and CSA, and I would like to see what edits come out of the CSA committee. And also, as Barry, I want to ensure that these are enforceable rules that CSA will take responsibly.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not quite sure that your vote reflects your attitude, to be honest with you. We all know that there are going to be edits, but both of you just said that you appreciate the work that the committee did. It was in no way not showing support for what the committee put forth. So you can recuse yourself, or you can do whatever you want, but we're not saying that this is going to be land use rules, period. We're saying this is ASPPPO's recommendation, and there's a difference. Greg.
Well, I just throw my 2 cents worth in here. I'm a new board member on both boards. I'm somewhat new to this whole land use conversation, and so I spent some time with Dana trying to understand the history a little better and to go through the committee's process and then to look at the documentation. And in that documentation, there's the information from other communities. And when I look at what we're proposing, it's in many cases way less onerous and expensive from a fine standpoint than some of our competitor communities. So I don't see anything in here that says to me we're going, it's a bridge too far or it's a step too far. And so I'm happy with it the way it is. I would hope that we don't water it down at the CSA level. And it seems like, if I understand the history, this has kind of been discussed and looked at a lot over and over, and it's taken a long time. And I think if we don't put out clear and competitive guidelines for maintaining our residences, we do the community a disservice. And I think, you know, for those people who are trying to comply with the existing rules, then, you know, that's great. But there's probably a lot of folks, and I've seen some stuff on social media that would say people, you know, don't know what the rules are. So I think passing these, communicating them, getting them out to the community makes a lot of sense. And if we're going to be a premier community or the premier community on the island, I think you need this to reach that goal. So just my thoughts. Thank you.
Lee,
Yeah, just a couple comments to my colleagues that are on both boards, and that is that I think you just need to remember you wear two hats. And when you come to a ASPPPO meeting, you wear an ASPPPO hat. When you go to a CSA meeting, you wear a CSA hat. And they can be
Different.
And in fact, at odds with each other. Here, you're representing the ASPPPO members, which are residential property owners that have chosen to join ASPPPO. When you go to a CSA meeting, you're representing the entire Sea Pines plantation, residential property owners, commercial, resort as well. So your vote here could be different than your vote there. But I just think you need to remember that when you're here, you're not representing CSA. What your role is with CSA has no bearing at this meeting. This is a separate corporation of which you are a board member, and you need to vote relative to what ASPPPO thinks is in its best interest. And that, as I indicated, that could be in direct conflict to the way you might vote when this comes up at a CSA meeting. And that's all I have to say.
thank you. Are there any more? Dana, I'm going to ask you to hold for just a moment, please. I think we've established the situation. Dave?
I just want to later respond to yours. My vote is because I'm not completely satisfied. And there are some aspects in it that I'm, as a representative of the property owners, elected by the property owners, that I have some concerns about. And so in good conscience, until I resolve those concerns, which I hope will happen with the meetings that are coming up, I do not care to take a stance. So mine is not because I'm on both boards. Mine is because, and I've always expressed some concerns before, every time this has been brought up, before the ASPPPO board, I always expressed some concerns for various reasons. Some of them have been matter of timing, but some have been because I have some concerns about some of the things that are in there. And so mine is not because I'm on both boards. I truly have some problems. I like a lot of it, and I'm debating within myself as to whether I like some of these very detailed rules, which could lead to controversy between neighbors and things like that, or whether I think we need the detailed rules because it needs to be that very clear. So mine is not because of any conflict or anything. Mine is because I truly have some concerns about what's in the rules.
Thank you,
And David,
Your
I
point.
thank you for that. My comment wasn't to anybody in specific. It was a general comment about the role on one board versus the role on the other. Each board member has to vote their conscience, and I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, your point is well taken, Dave. Are there any further thoughts? Are there any votes that need to be recounted, or are we good to go? All right, moving on. Dave Ellis, short-term rental.
Well, the only thing I can tell you about this is I was appointed chairman of the CSA committee on short-term rental. And of course, I'm coming up to speed on it. I've never had any involvement with it at all previously. I've still trying to go back to the past chairman of the committee, Bill being one of them, and Dave Pardue being the latest, to try to get information. But they have been giving me materials and things, including the committee charter and so forth, and information about passes. They're trying to educate me because I want to go into it knowing that I have the information to know where we want to go. First meeting will be next month, if I remember correctly. And, ASPPPO has a right to appoint a member to the short-term rental committee. And that's one of the things that you should do, Paula, appoint somebody to be a member from ASPPPO, that committee.
Thank you very much.
Paula, a question, or maybe more to Dave, or even better to Bill Johnson. At one time, the short-term rental committee was a joint committee. How did that change come about, that it's now just a CSA committee?
Bill, when you were chairman, was it a joint committee?
It was, and I co-chaired the committee with Beverly Serro. I initially was appointed by Charlie Miner, who at that time was president of ASPPPO, and Beverly and I carried out that role until I was elected into CSA, and Beverly was not re-elected to CSA nor ASPPPO, and she was, so we kind of flipped positions. I was in the CSA representative, and ASPPPO appointed Beverly as their representative. I haven't been the chair of short-term rental in going on almost, well, a little over a year and a half, I guess. And so how that change came about under David Pardue is, I still don't know the answer to that.
It wasn't David Pardue. I mean, last year, don't have an answer for you, Lee, put it that way. Last year, it was, I'm blanking on his name. Who's our Beaufort County councilman?
Stu Rodman.
Stu Rodman.
Stu Rodman was the chairman. And all of a sudden, the committee charters, when they were approved by CSA, it became a single committee. So it was done at CSA. I asked for it to become a joint committee again, and there was no agreement. And I'm assuming the charters are going up for approval again this year, Dave, or maybe they already have.
No, we hadn't had the first meeting, and the charter discussion on the charter is one of the items that will be on that first agenda. So I guess that would be something brought up. But when I've asked the question, I was told that it's not a joint committee. So, and I don't know how it happened in the past.
Paul, it just seems to me as it would be to CSA's benefit, and I'll just throw this out there, that since short-term renters are homeowners, we're not talking about commercial, that it would be to the benefit of CSA, if not a joint committee, to have a standing representative on that committee from ASPPPO, from the ASPPPO board, not just somebody that ASPPPO appoints, but an ASPPPO board member that sits on that committee. Just my 2 cents.
Well, that's what, Lee, that's what I was saying, is that the charter from last year designates that ASPPPO has a right to appoint someone to the committee. And I assume it'd be a board member. I don't know what they did last year, but I assume it's a board member that's appointed.
I'm not sure I even saw the charter last year to know that, because that stuff isn't published.
Okay, the charters are not published?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't know. I never looked.
Maybe they are, and I don't have them, or never got a copy of it, but.
I just don't know.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, so name change. The lawyers have approved the use of a new name, either Sea Pines Property Owners Association or Sea Pines Homeowners Association. However, our bylaws do not have provisions. Because we have articles of incorporation, the articles of incorporation would need to be amended. And because the bylaws do not have provisions relating to amending the articles, we are using what the South Carolina Nonprofit Act says for guidance. And the new name would go out to the members for a vote. So it's very expensive to run a vote by mail. We don't have enough emails to do vote electronically. So I'm going to recommend that we hold this until we do a mailing, which would be the election over the summer. Any thoughts on that, Bill?
Paula, can't we do a DBA, retain our legal name, but we can do business as whatever new name you want to.
Let me check and see. That was not the answer that I got from the lawyers. So I will check and get back to you. Wouldn't that be nice? All righty. Moving on, new business, our annual meeting. Their date of record for the annual meeting. You must be a member of, Barry, were you raising your hand?
Well, I was raising my hand on the last issue. I think the one thing you can do is at least telegraph to the community, our intent to do what we're doing right now. I know we've indicated we're going to discuss a name change, but the reason for it, so that people understand we're going in that direction.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it's on the landing page of the website or under task force. It's there, but we can put it in a newsletter if you think it's not communicated sufficiently at this
Good
point.
I just think it's important for people to telegraph our intentions, of doing this so that they understand there in essence is kind of some legal hurdle we have to accomplish. And if we want to include the community in the outcome, but this is our intent.
Thank you. Dana?
When you say vote, are you saying the vote to change the name or to not change the name? Or are you saying to vote between the two options that you presented?
I was not clear on that, and I'm still not. We can move forward with either one. I'd like to take a survey so that there is some community participation and explain it and have them vote, but the formal vote will be for one name.
Paula, did the lawyers say there had to be a vote of the members?
Yeah, it said to officially change the name, you have to amend your articles of incorporation. Bylaws do not have provisions relating to the amending of the articles. So we look to South Carolina Nonprofit Act, and that says that the charter, bylaws, and/or articles, if they are silent, a vote of the members would be necessary.
Okay.
I'm going to ask a really stupid question. Is it easier to change the bylaws first to allow us to make the name change as the board?
To change the bylaws, you've got to go put that out to a vote also. So it doesn't change what the hurdle is.
I see.
Paul, I just looked on the website and it's under task forces.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. We moved it. It was originally on the homepage and we moved it, I believe. So, all righty. So we've got the date of record for the annual meeting, which is March 8th, 2021. So any property owner that's a member of ASPPPO by that date will be participating in the annual meeting and will have the right to vote there. The membership committee, we are forming a new committee this year to help increase membership and drive our email list and work with communications on surveys of the members. And Lee Stevens has volunteered to be the chairman. Lee?
Yeah, and in your packet is a draft of a charter, which you've all seen in advance. My thought here is that we're a voluntary membership organization who's never had a membership committee. It seems a little contrary to me. And that the purpose would be to get community member input on member value and use that to communicate with all RPOs in Sea Pines to actively solicit membership in ASPPPO and to increase our membership.
Would you like to put the charter up for approval?
Sure. The resolution reads, resolved, Association of Sea Pines Plantation Property Owners and the Advisory Board approves the Membership Committee Charter 2021 as presented.
Second? Dana? All those in favor? Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Membership Committee. We're looking forward to great things. I think Lee's background is a perfect match for that. And thank you very much, Lee, for stepping up.
And Paul, I should mention, I already reached out to Ted, gotta lose.
Levitt.
Yeah, advertising through his social media, Sea Pines property owners to solicit applications for membership, as well as other means that we'll use to try to populate the committee.
That's great. Thank you. The next is Administrative Business Model Task Force. Right now, we have an administrative contract with CSA to handle a lot of our work. And like you saw in the bank charges, sometimes it's a perfect match and sometimes it's not necessarily a perfect match. There was so much transition coming on last year with new leadership at CSA, both chairman and president, new leadership at ASPPPO. We kicked the can down the road to this year, and we put together a task force of myself, Greg Thompson, and Grover Todd to determine, look at the options and make a recommendation to the board of what is the best way for us to run this business in an efficient and profitable manner. Is it contract out? Is it a hybrid model? Is it in-house? And start looking at people that can help fulfill that, including CSA. So stay tuned for information from that. Legal Support Task Force, because we're to help us with the name change. This isn't necessarily a legal committee, but again, we just need to reevaluate because of the lawsuits that are popping up. We have a lawyer. Is this the lawyer that's working for us? Is this at the right price, at the right time, with the right knowledge? And so Dave Ellis has volunteered to work with us. Also a gentleman, Dennis Meyer, if you have not met him before. The Covenant Change Task Force, you heard me refer to the covenants in the opening remarks. I think there's enough said there. Whoever would like to work with me, I certainly welcome any volunteers. The last new business is the Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and I've put the word foundation in there. This was an idea that popped out of the Land Use Management Committee, and I believe that it speaks directly to the heart and the soul of ASPPPO, Sea Pines, and the property owners. There are going to be times for our neighbors, for people in our community where something's going to come up short. Poor health issues, a loss of family. Who can predict, what the circumstances might be? But the Neighbors Helping Neighbors is a group of people that will come together to help these people. And it doesn't necessarily mean helping them pay their electric bill, although that might be part of it. It could be connecting them with people or groups who can help them. A la, the example that Dana gave was getting your lawn mowed and finding some Boy Scouts to volunteer to help out. We're a very generous island, and there are a lot of community organizations that are designed to help. So sometimes it might just be connecting the dots for somebody. But anyway, and Dana Guazzo has volunteered to do the startup work to see if we could be a foundation, what the work would be. Dana, do you have anything to add?
No, except that very little, actually. I look forward to doing this. And you're correct that this idea really came out of the Land Use Management Committee, because we occasionally will, it's not common, but you occasionally do find a situation where there is you notice that a property is suffering from maintenance because of no fault of the owner. It's just a bad time, bad circumstance. And it makes no sense to go after people in that scenario by hitting them with fines or a hammer. So actually, we've had people volunteer and step up and make donations at the time and resources to help people in situations like that already. So it was suggested, and actually I have to give Lee Stevens some credit for this, to make this a more formal process. We appreciate very much that ASPO is willing to take this on. And it makes a lot of sense that it would belong under ASPO. So thank you. And I really look forward to anybody in the community that wants to be part of this. I already have one volunteer. And so I'm really looking forward to getting some assistance from people who are interested in helping set this up.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful idea, and just personally, I'll financially support this effort also. However, what I need to be clear on is how the foundation needs to be set up, I believe, and administered under the rules of the state of South Carolina. And so, is there an effort to formalize that? To turn it into a I don't know if it'd be a 501c3 or what the classification would be, but I think that would help in getting financial donations coming in.
Thank you. Yes, that's the plan. And this first task force group is to really figure that out and to come up with figure out the umbrella that needs to be developed. And yes, that is the understanding. It's not to jump right in immediately to doing work, but it's to set up the framework.
You may want to reach out to the Community Foundation and see if they can assist us in this.
Okay.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more new business? Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you for your time this morning. We're going to adjourn for about 5 minutes. And then the community has been invited to send questions in, and we will take that time to answer them. So I'm going to go off video and on mute for about 5 minutes and then be back. Thank you all. Okay, I'm going to get back to this. Do we have Greg here? We have one question, so this will be very quick. This is from Terry Weiss. And the question is, I am wondering why among the various agenda items, although there must have been a draft agenda posted earlier, the board would be looking for a mission statement. The mission of ASPPO is laid out in the bylaws, which I labored over with mixed results for about 18 months. While our mission is in the bylaws and it's stated clearly, the language in the bylaws is not the language that we typically use when we're recruiting new members or sort of putting it in more of an everyday dialogue. So the work here is not in conflict with the bylaws, it's complementary to the bylaws. Does anybody have anything to add on that? Okay, we're done for the day. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.